After the solar storm of 1859, life in Oil Creek moved fast. Perhaps it was the Carrington event and that powerful current of energy that was pulsing through the air that ushered in the new world and our new way of life. With Drake's success, speculators and miners found their way to Oil Creek. And at the time, everyone believed oil could only be found near rivers and streams. So the small waterways in northern Venango County were being explored. And since Cherry Run feeds into Oil Creek, the trout stream located at the village of Plummer was their next target. The tiny village was south of Drake's Well in Cornplanter Township. It was founded by Henry McAlmont and was named after Congressman Arnold Plummer from Franklin, and he served under Presidents Van Buren and Buchanan. Plummer was the largest village in the township at that time, with a grist mill built by George Campbell and a hotel built by McAlmont. There were several stores, and one of which was built by James Sutton. So when the speculators could not find land to lease on Oil Creek, the strangers found themselves downstream in Plummer, drilling on the banks of Cherry Run. And the population grew from 300 to almost 2,000 just 1 year after the oil strike. By 1861, there was so much oil drilled on Oil Creek that it was spilling out into the water at Tar Farm. They could not keep up with production, so a new refinery was built downstream near Plummer by a German named Braun. Now, unlike Brom Bones from the Legend of Sleepy Hollow, John Braun was not a prankster or a foe. Actually, not much is known of him other than he came to America with a pile of cash, and he built a refinery at Plummer. And with the help of his Wall Street investors, he purchased over 20 acres of land and started refining the oil. He also built a private road to the Allegheny River where the steamboats could land to load his refined oil, carry it to Pittsburgh, and then sail it back to his homeland in Germany. When Braun arrived, he brought with him a group of German chemists to work the refinery. Their job, in addition to refining the oil, was to refine the residue, or the byproduct of oil, and to find a use for it. Now, according to the Chicago Tribune in October of 1864, not only was the plant refining oil, it was producing never-seen-before colors of silk in a bright blue named Humboldt blue and a light blue called azurine. And apparently the colors were produced from dipping the silk into vats of tar and naphtha and mixed with water. But the most popular color was the new purple-red color they called magenta. Now, how these colors were made were kept a secret by the chemist, and that was probably very easy to do, as none of them spoke English. It was by far the largest refinery in the area at that time, and Braun named it after Humboldt, a German leader and naturalist who explored America studying plants. And some say that by 1862, Braun's refinery was outproducing Rockefeller's plant in Cleveland. And that's probably one of the reasons why John D. sent his South Improvement men to the area, with the intent to buy out his competition. But what's odd is after only 3 years in business, Braun sold the plant to his Wall Street investors, and he left Cherry Run, and he was gone by 1864, and very little is known of him after that. Now, in 1864, when Braun left, it just happens to be the same year that the very first oil gusher was drilled on Cherry Run by William Reed. Now, Reed and his partner Criswell hit for 300 barrels a day. Pretty safe to say they were rolling in it, and a group of wealthy speculators arrived on the scene, made them an offer they could not refuse, and the pair sold the lease by November of that same year. And as I said before, there was so much oil they could not keep up with production. Barrel makers were working day and night to keep up with the storage demands, and there was an estimated 10 to 20,000 persons working on the run at this time, and there were several thousand Civil War veterans seeking their fortunes. because by this time the majority of the land on Cherry Run was now owned by the United States Petroleum Company. While the men were away fighting the war, the United States government had already arrived in Oil Creek and purchased most of the land along the creek and around Cherry Run. So the returning soldiers and wildcatters had nothing left to lease, and they were left but no choice but to move east to nearby Pithole Creek. It was about this time that Venango County soldier Lee Herron was marching home from Virginia, and he was going to leave his mark in history again as an oil driller on Pithole Creek. And having just been discharged from the Union Army, Herron would spend the next few years drilling next to the water that he had traveled by raft in his youth. And Herron would eventually take his pioneering spirit all the way to the Caspian Sea. See, Herron was a boy when Drake struck oil on Watson Flats the day before the solar storm of 1859. And the headstrong and free-spirited young man earned his keep on the Pennsylvania waterways. He steered a packet boat along French Creek to move barrels of oil between Erie and Pittsburgh. His father couldn't keep him home, and not long after the war started, Lee's fighting spirit took him to Virginia with the 83rd Pennsylvania Infantry. So while Herron and other young Venango County men were away fighting the war, German immigrants were moving into the area to build Braun's oil refinery. Now, when Herron was discharged from service in 1865, the oil gusher on Cherry Run was already old news. So he set his sights on Pithole Creek because that seemed to be where it was at. And a German stonemason named William Hopp had also made his way to the area. He allegedly designed this stone arch bridge that crosses Pithole Creek. And this bridge gave the oil speculators and teams of horses access to that new oil boom town. And in January 1865, the Fraser Well, Pithole's reported first oil gusher, came in along the creek. Now, by this time, the Western Union Telegraph Line had been put in operation. There were 15,000 people in the city. There were 57 hotels, 3 theaters, and even a red light district. By June 3rd of 1865, Pithole was the new source of excitement and center of attraction. And reportedly, 1,500 barrels of oil were pumping near the creek.